Hello everyone and welcome. Crash here. This is RTA Motorsports and today I'm going to give you my long-term review of the Thrustmaster 599XX EVO wheel.
Welcome to RTA Motorsports.
So we're in the Ferrari 599XX EVO and we're using Assetto Corsa to basically demonstrate this wheel to you. Again, this is the Thrustmaster 599XX EVO rim on the Thrustmaster TX base. You could see, as far as the title itself goes, that we do have the red ring that is demonstrated there. Also, on the bottom of the actual rim, it is also flat bottom like it's demonstrated here. Now, this is an 8/10 scaled replica, so it's not the exact same size as the real thing, although it is a bigger rim when it comes to more of a budget-friendly, good cost sim racing rim. You do find that most rims are sub 30 centimeters on average, especially for the cost of this rim. This car is freaking fast. So this car here, it's front engine Ferrari, which is unique in itself. And 720 horsepower V12 in the front of this thing, and that's what this wheel is based off of. That car that has that monster engine out front, hanging way out there. The one thing you notice when you jump in with this wheel is the force feedback is not missing, it's not dampened. You do get this slight, I would say, distance feeling with some of the feedback. Maybe it's a little bit of dampening because of the rubber that's on the inside, because this is constructed much like how the real wheel is constructed. So you do have a soft core. So I still feel all the feedback that I'm used to feeling, but some of the feedback almost feels like it's in a front suspension that is not the case. Of course, you know, I only have my wheelbase. It's kind of hard to describe, but I do feel like now my wheel is connected to a vehicle with a steering column. You get that nice little sensation that things are going on further away than your wheelbase. It doesn't add weight. Supposedly this weighs the same amount as the other add-on wheels, the smaller rims. And to be honest with you, it feels lighter. It feels much lighter, especially when you hold them side by side. If they say it weighs the same, I'll believe them. It's probably because of the size difference and surface area gives you that sensation that maybe it's lighter when it isn't. Missed the apex there. So since I've gotten this wheel, I have not actually cleaned it yet, to be honest with you. You can see on one of my other videos that I have on this channel how to actually take care of Alcantara, and I'll summarize it in just a few steps for you. The first step is you're going to want to take a very soft bristle brush and vacuum the wheel to kind of take out any grime that may be on the wheel surface itself. Then you're going to want to get some good Alcantara cleaner. Try it in a small spot and make sure it's not going to stain it. If it's fine, you can wipe it down with a microfiber cloth lightly. Do not, completely saturate the wheel surface. And then let it dry. And that's it. Should look pretty much new by then. You definitely have to take your time. It's a little bit of a tedious process, but this fabric is very well known for its durability, and it seems to come back real well. A lot of people call matting wear, and completely missed the carousel there, but a lot of people call it matting wear, and it's not wear. It does wear down eventually, especially if you don't clean it correctly or use a surface that's a little too harsh and you start pulling the fibers out. But you can make this thing look brand new if you take your time to clean it correctly and take your time with it, and being gentle to not damage the fibers. So Alcantara, I say it's a real, I always say real Alcantara, and that seems to throw a lot of people off sometimes, kind of get a lot of people angry. But Alcantara is a branded item, and that's what I mean by real Alcantara, because it comes from the manufacturer that produces Alcantara for a lot of the race cars and race car drivers. But there are other versions of this type of material because it's synthetic, so you have micro suede, and you'll see a lot of car brands, like for instance my Cadillac CTS-V has micro suede inserts and steering wheel. Feels just like Alcantara, but it's not the branded item, so they can't say Alcantara. It was created a long time ago. This is kind of like old technology, old fabric, because it was, I think, created back in the 70s. The wheel is based off the real wheel, and they hit a lot of key points, just like the seam locations and how the Alcantara overlaps in certain areas, and it looks just like the real thing. It really does. But the real thing does make some design choices and sacrifices, not for necessarily aesthetics, but for function. And for instance, on these middle areas here, you do have a distinct seam where it's almost like glued, it's not a sewn surface where it meets up with the rim. So you have this Alcantara laid on top of Alcantara business, and you can feel the seam. And behind the wheel, right where the paddle shifter is, where you would rest your fingertips, you're right at that seam. So I tend to almost like, my fingertips just lay right on that seam, and I tend to almost like constantly flick the seam and whatnot because my fingers are right on it, and it's not annoying, it's not uncomfortable, but it's right where my fingers lie, and it's based off the real thing. It's really there in the real vehicle, but because it's based off of a steering wheel that is a no compromise sort of steering wheel, you know, it is what it is. It's, you know, I'm sure in a steering wheel that was meant for, you know, the everyday consumer, this would be all carbon fiber or brushed aluminum, and you would have little caps going over. But that's not the case here. Also, in the real vehicle, if you haven't noticed already, we have fixed paddles. So if you own a T500, you have fixed paddles. You can kind of get that realistic experience having the fixed paddles. But you know, the paddles that are on this wheel are phenomenal. They are excellent paddles. I love them. I love the feedback that they give and how that tactile click nature is, and it's a really good paddle shifter that's on this wheel. That being said, it's not accurate to what's in the real thing. So for the T500 owners, now they have a paddle shifter on top of a paddle shifter. You know, I kind of wish maybe there was a quick disconnect that those owners could utilize, where they could slide these off and just have their paddles. Kind of something that the Thrustmaster ecosystem never made sense to me about, how that one wheel base had fixed paddle shifters, but all the add-on wheels that they made utilize wheels with paddle shifters already pre-attached. So it's kind of like they shot themselves in the foot with their own base, and that is their top tier base. Also, if you're a drifter, I would consider how comfortable you feel basically using a D-shaped wheel. The reason being, it's D-shaped, you know, so most drifters want a perfectly circular wheel. So that way you can grab it at any point when the wheel's spinning and the car is correcting itself, and it's even. You know, you don't want a D-shaped wheel ideally when you're drifting. Now, this wheel here, it I would say is like 80% circular, 85%. It's like almost there. So it's really not bad. It's not like some of these D-shaped wheels that are completely oval with a really strong flat, like the Momo Mod 30 or anything like that. It's not quite that dramatic, but you do notice when you do drift this wheel, it's not a perfect circle, and it does make drifting that much more challenging. And if your primary purpose online or on the PC is drifting, and that's what you enjoy, this may not be the wheel for you.
So after owning this wheel for over 5 months now, I do gotta say, I absolutely love this wheel. This wheel, the main problem I have with this wheel though is just the overall accuracy. Now I know Ferrari as a brand, they make most of their money as far as profit goes with their brand, with their logo. So things have to be within an acceptable range, and they are known to be of the utmost stringent as far as how their brand is perceived, as well as how accurate things are when they are licensed from their name. So this wheel looks really close, and Thrustmaster is one of the few brands out there that have any sort of rights to their brand as far as Ferrari goes. So that's pretty darn cool. But this wheel, it is a replica wheel. It is an 8/10 scale replica, and besides the size, there are other differences that make this wheel inaccurate from the real thing. For instance, the button box layout and the paddle shifters. The button box layout and the paddle shifters, as I said in my original first look of this wheel with the unboxing, is the same as their other add-on wheels. Now, that's not a bad thing as far as quality goes and as far as how easy it is to use. The button box is a really nice button box. It feels almost like an aftermarket button box. The buttons, even still, and I abuse my stuff. I really lay into my stuff. I'm not very gentle when I'm racing and I'm stressed out and I'm going into turns with other cars bumping into me. I just slam on these buttons without regard, and I expect them to work. And you know, they still have that same click, that same tactile feedback that it had when it was new. The Manatino switch still works in all directions without any sort of issues. There's no weird noises, there's no grinding. None of the buttons ever gave out on me. Same thing with the paddles. The paddles still have a nice tactile click to them. They feel awesome. I have gotten nothing but praise and compliments for how awesome these paddles are. And to be honest with you, I own a Cadillac CTS-V. It's an automatic, I know. It's a sedan. It does have paddle shifters. And I would love more than anything to try to retrofit a pair of these paddles into my actual car. These feel that good. But if we are talking replica, if you are a fan of the car, yes, this looks close. It looks close in the construction of the wheel rim, the fact that it's D-shaped, the fact that it has Alcantara just like the real rim has Alcantara. It has this red stripe. It looks a lot like it. It has button box layout with these same color buttons, the red and the blues, and the colors are very accurate. This one here is not labeled because on the real rim, and it's black, this button doesn't exist. Also, this here, the reason why this Manatino switch is just red with a red dot is because in their button boxes with Thrustmaster add-on wheels, this is always a Manatino switch, right? That's always there. But in the case of the 599XX wheel, the actual one, this is a red button. So that's why it's taken this look. You don't have that long, nice, easy to use Manatino switch. So, you know, I kind of wish, I do appreciate that there's this here. It's not hard to use. There's a little bit of a beveled rib there, so that way you can actually grab it easily and turn it either way and you know which way you're turning it. But it's not accurate to the true rim. Also, we're missing two yellow buttons that exist on the real rim here and here. And lastly, probably the one thing that I think is the most negative part of this rim is the Alcantara as it blends into the actual rim from these 3 points here is a little rough. You don't quite see that as prominent on the real rim, but it is pretty prominent on this one. And I wouldn't say it distracts me, but especially back here when I'm paddle shifting, my fingers lie right into that groove, and it is a little distracting at times, especially during long endurance races. My hands get real sweaty, and then you start getting a little bit of separation of the fabric there. Not that it's tearing or anything like that, it's just matting in different directions because the fabric is lying in different directions. So it's not uncomfortable, it's just something that you notice if you own this rim, and I don't hear too many people talk about it. The paddles on the real vehicle, they're carbon fiber. I understand for this price range you're not getting carbon fiber paddles, but the paddles are fixed to the wheelbase. So for you Thrustmaster T500 owners, you can basically use your paddle shifters and get the most realistic experience, but I wish there was a way to remove these paddles in that would make this a little bit more accurate for owners of the T500 wheelbase. I don't own a T500 wheelbase, but for those owners, I believe there should be a choice, because on the real vehicle, these paddles don't exist on the wheel itself. It's on the base. So yeah, I think that Thrustmaster really hit it out of the ballpark with this rim. They decided to create a rim that honestly I would think would be almost impossible to create for the price that they're selling it at. I owned a 2012 WRX in the past before my CTSV, and I upgraded the steering wheel to a steering wheel that was much this size and this shape. It's a D-shaped steering wheel. There's I think 3 main companies that do the aftermarket steering wheels for those cars. So if you own one of those cars, you know what I'm talking about. And mine was leather, it wasn't even Alcantara, and yet I still paid $500. Yes, it is an automotive steering wheel, totally different. It has to hold an airbag. I understand that, but this is only $170, and honestly, they said that it's created using similar methods that you would use to create an actual steering wheel for an automotive steering wheel, and it's automotive grade. And just feeling how sturdy and how stiff and how hard to bend this wheel is, I believe it. This thing here has no play at all, and it is a rigid wheel. It is a rigid wheel, and a lot of my friends are not small guys, and I get tons of compliments on how real this feels and how awesome the core feels, how soft it is. So yeah, Thrustmaster, you hit it out of the ballpark with this. There's some inconsistencies and some negatives. It's not an absolutely perfect wheel. I love the stitching on the inside edge that they have done. You could see that a little closer in my other video that I did of this wheel. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope I answered any questions you may have had, because I get a lot of questions regarding what's the wear like on this, and how does it feel and everything like that. Just, you know, definitely look at my Alcantara cleaning guide, where I clean the wheel in my CTSV, and I basically give you some brief history and overview of the fabric itself and how I go about cleaning it. It may not be exactly the way you want to or the correct way, but I did a little bit of research, and that's how I do it, and I get great results. So yeah, if you have one of the Thrustmaster wheelbases where you're lucky enough to be able to purchase one of these wheels and upgrade your wheel, I highly suggest this wheel. Now, the one last thing I'm going to bring up, and you have to be mentally ready for this. You may never want to take this wheel off your base. And that's something you better be ready for, because as an avid collector of some wheels here, I sold all my other wheels because this wheel just doesn't come off my rig. Something you're going to want to consider, because it may actually be a real thing that comes to be. This is the best wheel that Thrustmaster has made to date. So with that being said, I hope you all have a great day, and again, see you all out on the track.